Hey, and welcome back to Beer and Brands, Brand Federation's excuse to walk around Richmond and stop off at breweries and drink beer and talk about brands. This is round 2. My name is Matt Williams. I'm one of the managing partners of Brand Federation. I am here, as always, with Kelly O'Keefe, the founding partner of Brand Federation. And today we are at Strangeways in Scott's Addition in Richmond, and we're with Scott Collette, the tasting room manager. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how are you?
So, what are we drinking?
So today you have the Nar Shredder. It's our double New England IPA. It's going to have a real fruity taste to it from that big Vic Secret Cashmere hops that we add to it.
Awesome.
And you have the Albino Monkey, which is our Belgium white ale. It's gonna have some coriander, orange, lemon peel, some white pepper, and Virginia wildflower honey.
Sounds good.
Wow, yours sounds very classy, Kelly. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, yeah.
Scott, that's
what
good.
you all don't know is that it is noon on Monday afternoon, so it's nice to start the day this way. Kelly,
We'll be here all night.
This is going to work out great. So, Scott, tell us about Strangeways.
So we do have several flagships, one being the Albino Monkey, Uberlin, which is our Berliner Weiss, is another flagship, and then we have Woodbooger, which is our Belgian brown ale. But we have anywhere from 25 to 36 rotating beers weekly. We usually, most of our New England IPAs are rotating, so you kind of lucked out today and got the Nar Shredder.
Yes, I did.
But that's kind of our brand. We have a style for everybody. We do beer, we do our own seltzer, and we do our own cider.
Very
So
cool.
we have
That's
something
great.
for everybody.
How did you get the name?
So Neil is a very big music buff, and he loved the Smiths when he was growing up. So the album Strangeways.
He's still my heart.
It was
Strangeways, here we come.
Yep, the album cover still sits on it behind our bar. So yeah, that's how he came up with the name.
Fantastic.
great.
So here's the other question. Tell us about the logo.
About the logo.
Yeah.
So the original logo was drawn by a cartoon artist sitting on a barrel. It's a monkey sitting on a barrel.
Yep.
A little big for T-shirts and stickers, so he decided to scale it down. So that's where we got the monkey looking into the beer glass.
Where can our friends in and around Richmond find you?
So you can come to our tasting rooms,
Yep.
one on Dabney Road,
Yep.
and then right here in Scott's Addition, West Lee Street. And then we're sold, Albino Monkey and Woodbooger and Uberlin are sold in various stores throughout Richmond.
Fantastic.
That is
All
great.
right. Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
Really appreciate it. Thank
Great
you.
to meet you.
So Matt, there's been a lot in the news lately about sustainability, and we've certainly been writing about it and talking about it and helping our clients with it. Why do you think it's so important right now, and what does it mean for the corporations out there that have accidentally found their way into beer and brands and are watching this right now?
Yeah, so a very wise person who I worked for years, who was a man named John Adams, who I know you know, but he was CEO of the Martin Agency for years. He had a principle that I think was right, which is that he believed that the corporation has become the most powerful force in the world right now. It used to be government, it used to be religions, now it's the corporation. So if you follow the logic and you buy that,
I think that's true.
you have to say that then it becomes incumbent on the corporations to use the power that they have to address the issues that affect the quality of the lives of everybody in the world. And the number one issue right now, or one of the number one issues, is the sustainability of the planet and the climate crisis, which we are in the middle of, and if it's becoming more and more urgent the more information we get. So, like you say, we've been talking a lot about not just the business value of talking about the sustainability efforts that your company might be pursuing, right?
Right.
People need to know that, and that's a good business decision. But more than that, if you believe that the business you run as a chief marketing officer or as a CEO is a member of the most powerful class in the world as a business person, it's incumbent on you to talk about sustainability, to use the platform that you have to talk about the efforts that you and your company are doing to further sustainability and to save the planet, and to enlist people to help. So sustainability becomes not just a marketing strategy, but it's a moral imperative that businesses have to pursue those efforts and to talk about them.
That's interesting. So the more they talk about them, the more their competitors might follow suit, the more other smaller companies potentially could be emboldened.
Yeah.
And the more we start to address issues like sustainability that, Lord knows, we need to address, and we need to address it quickly.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. if Walmart, for instance, comes out with a huge push about sustainability, which they've done periodically over the last decade or so, where they're forcing their vendors to use more sustainable materials and things like that, if they do that in a way that coincides with sustainability being a bigger factor in consumer decision making, Target can't help but look at that and say, I need to get involved, right? Which isn't to say that Target's not already involved, but
Right.
a competitor of that company has to look at that company and say, what they're doing is working, I need to get involved in that too. And next thing you know, it's a snowball effect, and more consumers use it as a criteria for purchase. It becomes more important, and it becomes more important because corporations engaged in it the right way.
I think that's really interesting. Tell me a little bit, though, about how corporations should avoid the perception, if they are amplifying their voice about their sustainability efforts, which I agree is important, how do they avoid tripping into greenwashing?
Yeah, I think it comes down to something as simple as telling the truth and being honest about what you're doing and being honest about what you need to do and what you need to be better at. And not going so far as to fall into the kind of the cliches of avoidance that companies have used in the past, right? So we've all seen the petroleum companies who come out with beautiful shots of sunrises and children holding flowers, and that to me is classic greenwashing, because it's not about what they're doing or what they're not doing. It's not about them acknowledging the problem. It's them saying, hey, don't worry about this, we got it. Well, you know what? You don't got it. You've been more a part of the problem than you've been part of the solution. So let's get past all that kind of soft focus BS and start talking about what you're doing and how we can help and how we can work together to make this place better.
So it comes back really to one of our recurring themes at the Brand Federation: just tell the truth, and you can be honest about your flaws. We often talk about flawed is the new perfect, that it's okay to expose your flaws, especially if you're talking about working on those flaws. Is it okay for them to share their journey? We're not where we want to be, but by God, we're committed to being there. And here's what we're doing so far.
Yeah, they have to, because if you don't do that, the only alternative you have is to either be silent or wait until you're perfect. And none of those are viable alternatives.
I love it.
None of them.
I love it.
So sustainability is one of those conversations that's dominating the airwaves, and brands have to know how to engage in those kind of conversations that are important to culture. But there are other conversations, like things like Afghan refugees, things like the laws that are passed in places like Texas relative to abortion. How do we think strategically about how brands should engage in those kind of important issues?
Well, I think it goes back to what you said about John Adams' comment that corporations are now the most powerful force on earth, and they have a responsibility associated with that. We all know from Spider-Man that great power comes with great responsibility. And so what we're seeing is brands that are confident putting their true stand out in the marketplace and not worrying that they're going to lose as a result of that. Mm-hmm. And so whether that is Airbnb taking a very controversial stand in terms of housing Afghans who are immigrating to this country to get away from Afghanistan right now, or whether that's Uber and Lyft, both saying that we're going to transport people to and from abortion clinics in Texas because of concern that they wouldn't otherwise have access to the legal health care that they're allowed to have. So it's worthy of note that Airbnb is worth more than Marriott and Hilton put together. Obviously, taking a controversial stance is not tanking the company. And the same is true with Lyft and Uber, who are transporting people in Texas. Those companies are both worth more than Hertz and Avis put together. Yeah. What we're seeing again and again and again, whether that's Nike's stance on Kaepernick, Nike's stock increased after they took a stand to stand up with Colin Kaepernick to be able to stand for the rights of African Americans in this country, and wisely so. We're seeing those companies that are taking what used to be perceived as controversial stands, stand up for what they believe in, what their employees believe in, and what their customers believe in. And they probably do lose some customers, but they gain more, and more importantly, they gain the loyalty of those customers that are important.
Yeah, I think that's right. What's cool about this is it changes the conversations that happen in the boardroom relative to branding, right? So branding used to be about, what does my logo look like? What's my name? What do I say in my ads? Now, if you're going to have a real brand strategy conversation in a boardroom, you're going to have a conversation about what your company believes in and what you stand for and how you're going to behave, how you're going to activate those beliefs. And maybe you're going to do it in marketing communications, but that's the small way to activate it. The big way to activate those beliefs is Airbnb housing Afghan refugees. That's where they stand up and they put a stake in the ground and they say, we are going to behave in a way that reflects our beliefs. And controversy be damned, this is who we are. That's a real brand statement.
That is where it really comes down to the best brands. They have conviction about what they're doing. And the thing about convictions are they don't change just because the market doesn't do well. So even if the stocks were declining for some of these companies, they should still stand up. Yep. Because that's what conviction is. It's not calculated to say we can add 20 cents a share if we take this stand. It's this is who we are.
Yep.
This is what we believe in. This is the world that we want to see, and we're going to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Yeah, that's what makes brand strategy so fun right now. Is it's a conversation not about your logo or your name. It's a conversation about your beliefs and what you stand for as a company. That's when brand strategy is really fun.
That's
what you need to be talking about.
That's absolutely right. And I would say for anyone who might have happened onto the show who is getting into the field of marketing, you may have been worried that the field of marketing was all about selling toothpaste and shampoo to people who may or may not need it. But what it's become is an opportunity to be the voice of corporate conscience.
Yeah.
And that's a cool thing.
All right, Kelly, let's take a sip of beer, and we're going to talk about winners and losers in the world of brands.
All right.
Right now, right?
I love
so
it.
here's one. First one. AOC's famous tax the rich dress at the Met Gala. Winner or loser?
I call it a loser.
Yeah.
I call it nothing wrong with taxing the rich. I think 100% of the American population probably agrees that people should be taxed, rich or not. But to go to that kind of a gala and spend thousands of dollars for admission and a dress and hang around all evening partying with ultra rich people to make that statement, kind of not the right place for that.
Yeah. I think it's a win.
Okay.
I think we're talking about it. I think she got press galore out of it. I think the tension between what she said and where she said it made the story. And I totally get the point about there's a hypocritical smell to it. Like I'm gonna say tax the rich and then I'm gonna go party with them. But the tension in that.
That's interesting. So the media was the message in this case.
Oh, totally.
The Met was the right place for it.
Completely. The tension made the story.
I totally love it.
Yep.
So-
All right, here's another one. Facebook comes out, or it comes out about Facebook, that there are memos saying that Facebook knew that Instagram was toxic for teens.
Yeah.
Hard to find a win there.
There's no win there.
No.
I mean, do these people have daughters? Do they have children? I think we've really got to look at our social media and ask ourselves, when is it a positive force and when has it tripped over to a negative force? And right now that report is damning.
It's killer. It feels to me like the report that came out about the tobacco companies 40 years ago or whenever it was, saying that they knew nicotine was addictive and they stood up and denied it for years until somebody held a piece of paper in front of them and said, well, what about this memo? It just destroys the credibility of that company and reveals it for what, unfortunately, it's become.
No question. We've been talking about companies that are willing to take stands that might be costly to them in order to do the right thing.
Yeah.
If there's any company that can certainly afford to take a little bit of a hit to their net worth to do the right thing, it's Facebook.
Yep.
I don't know what they're worth. I know it's a ridiculous amount of money that I can't add up. Do the right thing. This is not so hard.
Yeah. All right, now here's the last one. And I think these last two are not really winners or losers because there's not really a question here. It's more like smack your head and go, how could you have done this, right? So this is the hospital that's sponsoring the football team that's led by an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah, Pullman Regional, I'm sure a great hospital out in Washington State. A hospital that right now is doing everything they can in every department to provide life-saving support to patients with COVID. It just happens to be sponsoring the Washington State Cougars, who are led by Nick Rolovich, and Nick Rolovich is refusing to get his vaccine. Now, that is an incompatible brand situation. Love the hospital, dump the coach.
Right. It seems pretty simple.
Yeah,
right?
that's not hard.
Seems pretty
Like,
simple.
you don't have to do a lot of metrics or math to figure
That's
that
right.
one out.
That's right.
I've got people working 24 hours around the clock to save lives of people with COVID. I've got a coach I'm sponsoring who doesn't believe in it. Dump the guy.
Yeah.
Dump the guy.
Yeah. So people ask the question a lot, do I have a brand? I need a brand. Do we have a brand? You have a brand. The question is not whether you have a brand. The question is whether you have the brand you want. And the best way to get the brand you want is to make the behavior that you display consistent with the reputation you want to create. That's how you get the brand you want. If you want to sponsor an anti-vaxxer and you're a hospital, that's probably not the best route to a great brand.
Absolutely. I think everything we talk about at the Brand Federation is helping organizations understand that brand isn't about what you say, it's about what you do, and then also a little bit about how you talk about the things that you do. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely more about the behavior. And so your behavior is involved in the decision to sponsor teams, to create new products and services, to do things like increasing your commitment to sustainability. And if you're not doing the right things, your brand isn't going to feel good.
Yeah, it's not that complicated at the end of the day.
No.
Well, that puts another round of beer and brands from the Brand Federation in the books. So thanks for joining us. We're here at Strangeways Brewing. Thanks again to Scott Collette for being such an amazing host and for giving us such terrific beer. And thanks to you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Brand Federation's Beer and Brands.
Cheers.